Welcome to Caffeinate and Advocate, the show where we sip coffee and talk all things mental health. I'm your host, Jess, and today I'm joined by Rayanne, a certified peer specialist with PeerStar. We are sipping our Sheets coffee in Cambria County, PA, and we're going to talk a little bit about advocating with medical professionals and practitioners. So Rayanne, when I talked to you before we met today, you had said that this was something you were very passionate about. Do you want to kind of tell us a little bit why you think this is an important topic for us to caffeinate and advocate?
Yes, Jess. So some of the things I've noticed with the job are people have a tendency to not stick up for themselves, don't know how to advocate, and especially with mental health providers, they end up, freezing. They end up not knowing what they want to talk about, or they just don't understand their mental health diagnoses in general. So I like to come in and teach a lot of my peers, I don't want to say to have a backbone, but to be able to be educated and informed and make the decisions with their providers instead of, just letting their providers do stuff for them.
Not to give my age, 42, but I know in my own experience, I have struggled in the past with talking to primary care physicians, talking to specialists about my health. You go in and I think sometimes we're intimidated. I think sometimes we're not informed. And so we go in and we are, nervous. We don't know what to expect. And I have taken a long time to learn how to communicate with providers effectively and respectfully. I think that's a big part. I know some of the kind of barriers that I experienced, or maybe some of the effects of not being able to, have that collaborative relationship with your medical team. Have you seen any of those in working in peer support? Like some of maybe the negative impacts of not being able to talk to your medical team providers?
Yeah, I definitely have. I have dealt with some peers who their therapists don't want to communicate with CPSs, or their psychiatrists don't want to communicate with therapists, and it really puts a strain on their mental health because, they are wanting to get diagnosed correctly, or are struggling with medications, and their therapist is telling them one thing and their doctor is telling them another. And they don't know necessarily where the disconnect is. But as a CPS, it's kind of my job to see that. Another negative effect is wrong diagnoses and not being on correct medications, because a lot of peers, or a lot of people in general, will be on a medication or, be doing a therapy thing and it's not working for them, and they don't know how to talk to their therapist or their psychiatrist.
Do you sometimes find that there's a struggle preparing for those appointments too? I think, you just said about either having a wrong diagnosis or wrong medication. I know I've had the experience of supporting people who, they're ready to talk and share their symptoms, share the barriers they're, experiencing, but then they get into that office and it's all gone. I've been there. Yes. Where I'm like, what did I want to tell them?
Blackout.
Yeah, and I know I've developed some strategies for that, but in that situation, what are some things as a peer specialist you have helped peers whenever they struggle to remember what they wanted to tell?
So several things that I do is I have a system with my peers. Text me. If you're stuck in an appointment and you don't know who to talk to, text me, call me, ask your psychiatrist if you can phone in your CPS or your therapist and phone in. We have obviously talked about stuff in sessions, or write it down. Keep a planner, write down your thought processes throughout the week. If you have questions or any research you've done, write it down. And that's a big thing, is taking resources into the appointments with you and knowing that you have a support system outside of that appointment as well.
I think that's an amazing tip, writing things down. I think, and like you said, taking the resources in there, because it is hard to remember what you want to say. And sometimes it's hard to put it into words, what you want to say. And I know if I can go in even with a bullet point list and I can tell the doctor, this is what I've been experiencing, and they can read my list, or here's my questions. And as you said, you have that resource so that if you forget, you're able to say, either read the questions or you can hand the questions over to the provider.
The other thing I tell people is, I know Google can be a bad resource, but Google can also be a wonderful resource. So if you are having symptoms that you don't understand, print out resources and say, hey, could this be, for my example, is I had ADHD. I didn't know it, and I went to my psychiatrist and said, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what other people are experiencing that are similar to me. And I put a stack in front of her and I said, can we go through these? And she said, absolutely, we can look at this, we can see what you're experiencing, what you're not experiencing, and we can go from there. So even printing out resources and just reading up on resources can be very informative. If you know the topic you're talking about, it's easier to talk about, and you're not going to forget things, and you're going to feel more comfortable asking those questions instead of just, deer in headlights. So
we talk about empowering in peer support, and I think what you just said illustrates empowerment so well. A lot of times empowerment is learning how to gain some control in a situation. And I feel like sometimes when we go into appointments, again, we're waiting for the provider to take control, but we have to remember that we know ourselves and we know our experiences, and the provider doesn't. Even if they want to, they can't know everything.
They can be your best friend and still not know it.
Yeah, they can be your best. Exactly. They can be your best friend and still not know it. And I know that those of you watching, many are exhausted, and we understand that. And we appreciate everything that they're doing for us. So I feel like you giving that illustration of going in and asking, hey, can we go over this? Mm-hmm. Like, it's okay to be prepared and go to your appointments with material and, as you mentioned, resources. And I feel like that's probably something that we don't talk enough about. Mm-hmm. Peer support we do,
but
outside of peer support.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times too that, like you said, psychiatrists and stuff don't know everything. So if we present them with something, they might go, that might be the aha moment. It could be one little thing that you've maybe been beating around the bush about or have forgotten, or that small thing, sleep deprivation can be a huge symptom. And people forget about it. Oh, I just watch TV late, or I just read late. And that, little things like that can help get your mental health pinpointed, so that's definitely one of those things.
I think too, some of the experiences I've seen and I've had is we focus on symptoms, we focus on signs, and sometimes we forget to tell, our team what we're going through, to say, hey, this is what's going on in my life right now, or hey, this is something that's happened. Like, I'm having these symptoms, I'm having these, I have these concerns, but I also need to let you know that these things are going on in life.
That's a very good point.
Because I feel like we go to doctors and we only talk about the physical. We don't talk about the other things, the stress we're experiencing,
Absolutely.
the relationship struggles, all those different things, work stress.
Absolutely.
So write those down and tell people and share them.
Give the whole picture, not the pinpoints. One other thing too that I like to advocate with is, talking to those mental health providers that kind of stereotype. And I know it's not a lot of them, but we do run into, being put in a box, I like to say. And telling people that, like, you can go into appointments without being rude. You can stand up for yourself. So that's one other thing I like to do is I call it getting a backbone with my peers, bringing out that this is what I stand for, this is me, this is who I am, and really commanding, I tell everyone, you get out of mental health what you put into it. So if you go into an appointment and you're just sitting there, you're not getting anything out of it. You have to take control and take charge. And that's the other thing, is getting mental health providers to listen fully and not just, us advocating for ourselves, but sometimes standing up for ourselves and saying, this is what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. So
I think it's a hard balance to find for a lot of people, is finding the balance of, if I'm seeking help, it's because I respect the experience of the helper, and I respect the knowledge and the practice that those helpers have given to their practice. But I also have to find that balance of, as we said before, like, I'm the expert on my experiences. I'm the expert on how I'm feeling. I'm the expert on my symptoms. And let's find the balance of taking control, but also respecting the knowledge and the training, and finding that balance, I think really, really helps build that
always
rapport.
Have respect.
Yeah, both ways, that
Absolutely.
mutual respect.
Absolutely.
That we boast about in peer support. And we believe in it. It is. And mutual respect is huge in recovery and wellness. Well, I could talk about this forever. And most of us know I could talk forever about anything. Just don't ever bring up my cats and we'll be here for hours. So is there anything else that you would like to say? I feel like, I think whenever we end, I always like for us to end with kind of some advice for anyone who's watching, anyone who's tuning in and is thinking like, yeah, like, I struggle to talk to my doctors. Like, before it gets frustrating, what are some tips and advice that you would give to someone who's really in that struggle right now of advocating and communicating during appointments?
I think my advice to people would be to always remember that recovery is possible, that you're always on your journey, and people don't always get along. So if you are not clicking with your mental health provider, you're not clicking with your CPS or your therapist, there are other people out there. And it's perfectly okay to move on from a therapist that maybe, maybe someone specializes in CBT and you need EMDR. It is okay to find those people that click for you, and it's important to. You should have your circle and have your team working together, and if it's not working, move on.
And I think it's important for the individual and the provider to know that it's okay to not click. I even think for the provider, like, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I know my energy can be annoying. I know that I make dumb jokes. I know, like, there's little things I know that are not for everybody. And so you have to learn to not take that personally, whether you're the one seeking help or whether you're the one providing help. So remember, we're not all going to click, and that's okay. So as you said, don't hesitate to seek, continue seeking help and support until you find the person you click with.
And they're out there. They are definitely out there. I've been through 3 therapists myself, and I finally found the one. And that's when healing started. So, it's definitely possible.
One.
I did.
We don't talk about the one like that.
I did. I definitely did. She is fantastic, and it gives you hope, and it's renewing, and it's out there.
Well, it'll be hard to beat that last line, so we're going to end right there. Rayanne, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been another episode of Caffeinate Navigate. I make you do cheers with me. Until next time, thanks again. We'll see you next time.